Peace, family, and welcome to another episode of Sins of the Fathers. I am your host, Ani I Am, and I want to welcome you back. For those joining the first time, I appreciate you tapping in. And for my people who have been here with me for a little bit of this journey, I definitely salute you and thank you for tapping in again. I hope that you're finding some value in my journey. I hope you are learning something about yourself or someone else that you may be able to help with some of my discoveries. And I just really want to thank you for just being a part of this journey. I always welcome any comments. Anybody that wants to share their journey, I would say, please tap in, let me know, and I would love to get you on the platform just to kind of have a discussion and just build on what we feel, what we go through. So I want to thank you. Again, I want to say love, peace, resilience, strength, power, forgiveness, gratitude, grace. I hope those words guide us as we go through this journey. I've been doing some reflection on some things, and I realized something. I was just thinking about something that happened to me a couple of years ago, and me and my team, we had we want to really, we kind of closed this really big deal. It was a great opportunity. We're gonna make a nice, we're gonna make some good money, and we were kind of celebrating, food, drinks, the whole nine. Everybody was really having a great time. And in that moment, something came over me. I can't really say what it was other than it was like a feeling of anxiety, maybe. It was like my heart was racing, my palms got sweaty. Almost wanted to say the mom spaghetti, Eminem line, but, we'll leave that for another time. But, I felt this energy and I was like, what is this? Like, what is this? So I just felt totally uneasy. Like I felt almost like a panic attack. So I said, I'm gonna step over. I went off into another room. I just stood there, sat there for a minute, and I just, what's wrong, honey? I asked myself, breathe, what's happening? What's going on with you? What are you feeling? What's going on? And I couldn't really put my finger on it. The most I could do is I would say, I just calmed myself down. I went back out. After about maybe 5 or 10 minutes, I went back out to the party and just said, you just go out there and, work with the team. And so I'm out there, went through the rest of the night, because we perform well, we are high functional survivors of trauma, right? So I'm out there, we go through the rest of the night, it's cool, I get home, now I'm home with my lady. And I'm home with my lady and I don't know what it was because I can't remember because it was very insignificant, but somehow we got into a disagreement and let's just call it an argument because it turned into an argument for an hour of yelling and screaming, me more doing the yelling and screaming. And then I said something like to the tune of, you don't really understand what I got to go through to get to this level, for this level of success that I've reached. Probably you just don't get it. Kind of like you wasn't with me when I was shooting in the gym, and I'm going through these kind of emotions, right? And at that moment, I just saw her like, "What are you talking about? Like, what do you mean? Like, what does that have to do with something that what does that have to do with something else?" And again, because I'm in my emotion and I'm kind of just going off, I didn't take the time to process that. So, let's fast track to now where I've been on this journey for a while now, doing some studying and just trying to understand myself and understand these issues that I felt. And I started to replay it and I said, you know what? At that moment, in that time, I could almost hear my childhood, the young me, reaching out for validation. There was something in that moment, maybe even me not feeling like enough, where when I was in that moment earlier in the party celebrating, was I feeling like maybe I didn't deserve this. Maybe I have to like hide myself and guard myself like somebody was gonna come and take it away and rip it from me, right? And now when I go home with my lady and I'm arguing, I could really hear the voice, the child voice calling out for validation. Like, you don't really got me, you didn't believe in me, and I'm expressing that on her, but it really was just me having unhealed, unresolved issues that were causing me to respond in that way to her. So here I was, a grown man, with my emotions being regulated by a child. Because it was the child in me that was actually regulating those emotions. It wasn't me, the adult, mature me. It wasn't that mature emotional regulation. That was me not being fully healed and not even recognizing that I needed to be healed at that moment, right? So I would go on and I say, all right, I understand now. I'm kind of trying to get a little bit more information about it. So then what I did was I said, let me really look it up so I could understand what that is. And I found this term basically, which is kind of like, it's called emotional regulation. So emotional regulation is kind of like when you have the ability to influence emotions, when to have them, when they're appropriate, how they should be in a certain experience, how we express our emotions, all of that is what would be considered emotional regulation. And here it is, I am an adult being emotionally regulated by a child who doesn't have the maturity to do it. So think about what that means. This is why it's so important for us, because we're walking around highly functional, but it doesn't mean we don't have unresolved issues that need to be answered. We walking around fine. We showing up at work. Especially like for my professionals, my entrepreneurs, we got to put on that front every day. But internally, we have this conflict, this constant duality happening on both shoulders of what to do, or just being uncertain about things. And then, so as I look deeply into emotional regulation, there's emotional dysregulation, right? Where we kind of go through these things, and so let's try to understand the science of it, right? So let's do it this way. So the trauma that we go through is not just stored as memory. It's not just a memory. It actually begins to change the structure and function of our brain. I want you to think about that. Now, this is science. This is not conjecture. It actually begins to change the structure and function of the brain. And particularly, it happens in the areas that are responsible for processing and regulating the emotions. Think about it. It's affecting the part of the brain that processes and regulates your emotions when you go through trauma and at a young age and you don't heal it. When you go through those negative childhood experiences and they don't get healed, it starts to change you physically. So it's not just about, you could just run in there and it's a memory. You could, kind of push the memory aside. Now your brain has changed. So when a child experiences the trauma, the brain is just flooded with all different kind of stress hormones. It affects the nervous system. It affects how you regulate your emotions because your nervous system has become conditioned to respond in certain ways in order to protect that child in you. And because that child wasn't protected, then you're still responding from that hurt child space. It's a lot to process, right? So I'm just going to read a little bit about some things that I just want to make sure I touch on, because I think it's very important that we understand what it is, that we kind of understand it. And I'll give this analogy first. So, just imagine kind of like driving a car, and in your mind, you are saying that you're not sure if these brakes are going to work or going to stop this car while you're driving it. So everything that happens when you're in that car makes you feel terrified that something could actually happen, right? Things could just go wrong immediately. So what you start doing is you start compensating for the lack of brakes working. So you start like bracing yourself. You start putting your hand on the dashboard, or you do all of these things. You understand? So imagine transposing that onto your emotions, your emotional braking system, which you should be able to stop certain things or certain feelings from happening, but they don't. So what happens is the brain begins to compensate for those lack of emotional regulations. So the fear that you would feel as a child, the brain starts making other things happen so that you feel confident, but those things could be harmful. Those things could be harmful, you know? So it causes you to it really, when it doesn't work properly, it breaks you down. It breaks down your ability to handle high stress situations internally, because outside, like I said, we perform well. We'll handle those things outside, but then it'll be one little thing inside of that breaks us apart. Somebody will say something to us and we'll carry that feeling for a week. But yet we could go into a boardroom and run circles around people. We could go into an office meeting and have all the answers and be firing off the best possible solutions to strategically align the company in a way to make profit, right? Whatever that is. But then the donut man at the cart could say something and it trigger you. And you feeling and thinking about this donut dude all day long. Like, what do you mean by that? Why didn't I should have cursed him out. Maybe I should have said something. Maybe. And this is the dysregulation of emotions. This is you not having the right braking system to say, brr, brr. Let's think about why we're feeling this way. Let's get this right before I go any further. Right? You start thinking about that. So, we as humans have 3 modes that our brain go into. One is to stay calm. Other one is fight or flight. Something happens, we taking off. And the third one is we freeze. And we just lose, we unable to make a decision, we can't move. Obviously the last two, I'm gonna say, because flight or fight is a innate thing that we, as primal action, we got to fight or flight. That's just normal. But now to freeze means that you stop thinking at that moment. You stop coming up with solutions. You stop believing that you can move or appropriately pick a solution to get out of wherever you're in. And in my mind, that kind of reminds me of some of the things when I was just saying, when I was in that meeting. I didn't know what was going on. I couldn't even figure out, was I in flight or fight mode? Was I elated? Was I happy? Was I sad? What was going on? And it really didn't dawn on me until now as I got older. And I said to myself, these emotions that I'm having are just, they have to be controlled. They have to be regulated, because you can't control your emotions. They're not for you to control. They're for you to manage, because your emotions have a purpose. They're there to warn you, intuitively tell you something, give you feedback of the world outside of yourself. They're there for a reason. So it's not to stop them. We can never suppress all our emotions. We can never stop them. What we want to do is be able to manage them, so that they don't manage us and they don't take us on long rides where we're out of control because we haven't gripped our emotions, right? Sometimes we'll see these all or nothing emotional states. Either we're suppressing the emotions entirely or experiencing them at this high intensity. And there's like no middle ground for us, but we got to find that middle ground, that balance, that harmony, where we can exist while both of these things are happening. We got to find that middle ground in order for us to feel safe, right? When we have this emotional dysregulation, how does it impact our closest relationships? How is it impacting our children? So many of us, we express, regret over not being able to model effective stress management, effective emotional management around our children, because our children are watching, they're absorbing our behavior, they're seeing it, and they're normalizing the outbursts, and it don't have to be outbursts directed towards them. Let's just say, you're driving and if somebody cuts you off, you start cursing and screaming. The young ones in the back, they listening to that and they're absorbing that. They're watching that behavior. They're going to mimic that behavior. I noticed that, it was a time when I would talk to people and I would just, my face would be contorted. Like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? And that's how I was communicating, right? Because I had this anger inside of me. So as I'm communicating to someone, my face looks frowned up. And then one day I'm looking and I'm talking to my daughter and she's talking the same exact way to me. What are you talking about? And in my mind, I'm ready to yell because I'm saying, who the hell you think you're talking to like that? But then I realize I'm looking at me. I'm looking at my face. She's a mirror, reflection of what I was doing. Right? That's all she was doing. And I had to check myself before I, again, went off. And I had to just kind of say, hey, babe, why you look so angry? And then she realized, I don't feel angry. I said, I wish you could just see your face because it's very, you look angry with me like I did. She's like, no, I'm not angry with you. She hugged me. But in that moment, she's just expressing what I've taught her. What she's probably seen me do to her mom, what she's probably seen me do to 1,000 people that I come in contact with, what she's probably seen me do while I'm talking on the phone and I'm having a conversation and maybe talking to one of my team and I'm telling them what to do and this and that, and I'm doing it so aggressively, and I'm listening to her on her phone with her friends, and it's aggressive, borderline bully. And I had to take responsibility for me and say that's me. That's me. That's me. And it impacts them. So then I started saying to myself, so now, what do I need to do to fix these things? Because that's what's really important. What do I need to do to really kind of work on these things? So first was, I got to build body awareness. I got to build my body. I got to be able to. We know that emotions have physical signatures: tension, tightness in the chest, fluttering in the stomach, whatever that is, sweaty palm, whatever that is. Emotions have physical signatures that we can recognize. So we need to first be aware of when these things start to flare up. Take a few minutes when that happens, when we see them, when we can identify them, we take a few minutes and we breathe in. Scan your body. Notice for any areas of tension, any sensations that don't feel right, and just observe these feelings. That can help to regulate the nervous system. And I remember sitting on the computer one night and it was just, I'm working and I'm digging away, and I just paused for a second to check in with my body, like, how you feel. And I realized at the moment I was tense all over. And the tension was about to turn into irritation, right? And just noticing it helped me reset. Boom. I said, wait a minute. Maybe get up from the computer for 5 minutes. Go take a little walk, bro. Go get some water. Should get some water. You know what I mean? Don't even let that take effect, right? Then another thing I thought about, I said, need to create some Self-compassion. Self-compassion, because I'm hard on myself a lot of times. I'm probably harder on myself than anybody else is hard. Nobody's as hard on me as I am on myself. Probably the best way to put it, right? So self-criticism often amplifies emotional dysregulation. Self-criticism often amplifies emotional dysregulation. So you got to learn to respond to your struggles with a level of kindness. So learn to respond to your mistakes. You're spilling the juice on the floor. Don't curse yourself. Don't say stupid. Don't curse yourself, because you bust a tire or because you got a flat or something like that. Don't give yourself some compassion. Give yourself some compassion. Like really take a minute and just say to yourself it's okay. It's okay. It happens. It happens. You get over it. Let's just clean up. Let's wipe this up. Let me just go and get my tire fixed. All right, I'll be a little late for the meeting, but they'll make it without me for a few minutes. I'm gonna die. Give yourself that level of compassion. Right? There was a doctor that said, it was a neuroanatomist who says that explains the psychological response of emotion typically lasts about 90 seconds. So it's called the 90-second rule. So your emotional response typically only lasts about 90 seconds. So this immediate anger, fear, whatever it is, lasts for 90 seconds before your brain catches up and says, wait, all right, we can figure this out. After that, we either choose to keep the emotion, because it's live in that first few minutes. So we either choose to keep the emotion at that point, or we let it go. So when you feel activated emotionally, just tell yourself, I just need to ride this out for 90 seconds. It's about a minute and a half. Ride this out a minute and a half. Just chill, relax. Then focus on your breathing. Sends oxygen to the brain, relaxes the body, and you give yourself back an opportunity to be in control. That's super dope, if you ask me. To be able to control your emotions and not let yourself, me being an aggressive, sometimes, controlling, angry, whatever you want to call it. Man, it's beautiful for me to find that, because I feel so loved and at peace when I can control that emotion and not get caught up in, I love it. I love it, And then, maybe make a plan. Create an emotional regulation plan. When certain things trigger you, maybe go drink some water immediately. Maybe hum a song. Maybe snap your finger. Maybe tap your chest. Whatever it takes, but make a plan that lets you know, all right, I'm triggered. Let me calm down. Let me snap my finger. Let me pull on my finger. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me. But let's do something. Let's not let the emotion win. Let's not let the overwhelming emotion win. We just can't do that, And that's important for us, because this is about healing. And try one of those. Try something, Don't just sit there and keep letting it happen, because awareness and then application of the knowledge that we're gaining is where the wisdom comes in at. And the more we do that, the more we understand ourselves. The more we start to understand who we are and how we work, how this body works, how this mind works, how this emotion works, and how we could finally be at peace and with harmony, So remember, the goal is not to eliminate our emotional responses. No. But it's more to develop new relationships with how we deal with our emotions, how we function through our emotions. That's really what this is about. How do we function with these emotions? Because we can never get rid of them. We're never going to get rid of them, So the best thing to do is to learn to function with them. And if we can do that, that's when we begin to see the healing process. So let me give you a call to action this week. Just choose one of those practices we talked about. Just choose one. And commit to consciously using it. I wouldn't care which one, how you do it, what it is. Choose one. Let's work on it together, because I'm going to be doing it. I've been doing it. So and I've seen the results. I've seen me become so aware of when I'm about to get triggered that I stop myself. I don't argue with, people who know me who I'll be watching this know, I love a good argument. I'm changing that, because even the need to argue is my validation of need to be right. And I don't need to be right. I don't need to be right. I just need to be heard and hopefully understood. And if not, I got to be okay with the fact that maybe that person is not ready to hear what I got to say. Right? And it's okay. It's okay. So I appreciate you again, family, for tapping in. I really do. I really appreciate you for tapping in and listening and taking the time to heal yourself. Taking the time to grow and be better versions of yourself. I really, really, really appreciate that. I really, really appreciate you tapping in and being with me. Listen, I ask you to please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. You can also follow me on all platforms. I'm on Instagram and I'm on TikTok at Sins of the Father /AniIam. /Ani/I am. Both of them is at Sins of the Father. And that's just for little short clips, You're getting the real juice right now. But, sometimes it's a message that comes up on it. And it might just be a message at the right time. So I ask you to please like, share, and subscribe to all channels, to all outlets. Because I want this message to go out. Like, I'm doing this strictly from my heart because I want this message to go out. I want somebody to heal. Somebody got to hear my story. I was talking to a therapist, a good brother by the name of Curtis Jasper. He's an awesome therapist, dope brother. And he just told me, brother, somebody need to hear your story. Somebody need to hear it. I mean, maybe you can't talk to the board executive. Who knows? Maybe it's just a brother that's sitting home and not doing well, and he just hears it, and it's enough to spark him so that he could take care of his son better. Or it's a sister out there that's struggling with something she ain't sure about, and she hears your message and she taps in on something. So share that message. So that's what I'm doing. So again, family, I appreciate you tapping in. Please comment anything about this episode, whether you didn't like it, whether you liked it, whether you thought it had good quality information, whether you didn't, whether it's something I could do better, or even just a topic that you feel I could cover or research for you that I could talk about on the platform. And again, if you want to get on the platform with me, if you feel you have a story we could share, we could relate, and we could look up research together, please hit me in the comments, and I'd love to get you on the platform. Again, thank you. Peace, love, healing, family. All right, signing off. Thank you for watching Sins of the Father. Peace.